Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Zero BS with Steven and Jess. With yours truly, Jessica and Steven.
How
Steven,
are we?
how are we? How are
Good, yeah. Sorry, yeah. I jumped in there as always, eager.
I
And no,
love
we're
how we
good.
always say, like, how are we? But yet we've been talking for the last hour before we even start recording.
Yeah, it's always the way. No, I'm good. I do you know what I mean. I missed the in-person one. It was
I
so good.
know this is like our first Zoom one again now since we've done our in-person ones. This does feel a bit different as well. I'm kind of yeah, the in-person ones will be amazing as well. But look, no doubt we will be getting some in-person ones in very soon again when I come back to Ireland. So
100%.
which will be exciting as well. But yeah, I'm really excited for this episode. I think this now I should know this. This is episode 4, I think, is actually as well.
This is some myself and yourself did one on your. Are you counting our one on Jess chatting?
No, I'm actually not counting that one, but technically
Okay.
that was 5 then. But obviously we've had overtraining, we've had prep, then we had the episode with Connor, and now it's this one.
Yes. Oh, and if you're listening, oh yeah, sorry, this is going to be out in 2 weeks, but the Connor one would have been out by now.
Yeah, Connor's
which
episode.
Which is a good one.
Yeah, really, really exciting. But guys, if you're listening on Spotify, welcome. If you're watching us on YouTube, how are we?
With our 2 views.
With our 2 views, I know. But yeah, look, really excited to get into this week's episode. This is kind of not related to fitness, which look, I suppose we know, even though we are fitness coaches, I suppose we like to kind of stem away from that as well, and to kind of talk about different things that we're passionate about and what there might be a stake about, because obviously this is a no bullshit free zone. So yeah, do you want to tell people, Stephen, what we're going to talk about today?
Yes. So as Jess said, we are coaches ourselves, but we do see a lot of the podcasts around, and we're trying to go towards the stuff that's not really spoken about. And as you may have listened already, we've had our overtraining, burnout, which me and Jess have experienced, and then last week myself and Connor spoke about our experience with steroids and PEDs. And then another topic myself and Jess spoke about a few weeks ago, which is today's episode, is the stigma around therapy. And we want to dive into why there is a stigma. Myself and Jess do go to therapy. We'll get into that now in a few minutes, but we do believe it's not spoken about enough. I do believe, Jess, also, especially males, lads put up a bigger wall than females. I've found sometimes, well, not found sometimes, but I know lads that have kind of brushed it off because it's cool, I don't need to go. There's not something wrong with me, quote unquote, but we'll get into that now in a second. But yeah, today's episode is the stigma around therapy, why it's looked at as if someone's trying to hide it, and some truth about actually going to therapy and how helpful it has been, and how I wouldn't be stopping going anytime soon.
Yeah, it's gonna be really exciting episode, because I suppose you're getting a male and a female's perspective of this conversation as well. So it's not just one gender as well. So I think, as you said, particularly with males, I would even think there's a stigma around males even talking in general, just being actually open as well. So I think it's going to be interesting to hear the male perspective as well versus the female as well, because I think, again, if we're to be really stereotypical about genders, it's females are always emotional or whatever, and lads have to be tough and lads all the time, whatever. So it's actually really trying to be kind of uncovering that as well, and remembering we are all human at the end of the day, regardless of gender, so I think it's probably just trying to, again, kind of really uncover that as well. So
first thing we're going to run through is why myself and Jess eventually did into therapy, when was their triggers, etc. So Jess, I'll leave it to you for the first question: why you got into it and when you got into it.
Oh God. Okay. I suppose to read it back a few years. I've opened up about this before. But I don't know why I feel really nervous about it now. I suppose I haven't really talked about it in a while. I was bullied when I was younger. So I was bullied in primary school, secondary school, and actually my first year in college. So at the time, I suppose in my, even in college, I never really classified it as bullying up until about a few years after, where I was like, okay, that was actually bullying. It wasn't just taking the piss. It was that was actually quite harsh. But yeah, when I was younger, I was bullied in primary and secondary school. So I had to like, move schools and stuff as well. And, would have been like, even though now people probably see me as this extroverted female because I've, pink hair and I'm confident on social media, all this stuff, whatever. But like, I'm quite, reserved, I suppose. And I've always kept everything to myself for most of my life, just because when I was bullied, I was picked on. So I had to try and like fit into society or fit into what everyone else is doing so that I wouldn't get picked on. So I suppose like the therapy kind of probably started when I was probably maybe when I was about like 8 or 9. I didn't go for that long. And then when I was in school, again in secondary school, when I was about like 15 or 16, I actually said it to my parents, being like, I need to talk to someone. I was like, I need help. Yeah. And I went for maybe about a year. I was in boarding school at the time. So whenever I'd come back from boarding school on a Friday evening, I'd always go to therapy. So maybe went for about, I don't know, maybe about a year, maybe less. And then I stopped going. And then I reached out to a therapist there in December 2020. December 2020 was probably like another kind of peak low time, if you want to call it. Like I've had like my ups and downs with it. I've never been clinically diagnosed as depressed, but I do feel like I was, and it's something that I don't say lightly. I think a lot of people now kind of say to, a lot of people say like, oh, I have anxiety and oh, I have this and I have that, and say it so freely. And I'm like, no, like I genuinely do think without the clinically part of it, I was depressed. Like even in college, that's actually another time I went to therapy. I went to college I went to therapy in college, and I remember I was on antidepressants actually in college. So maybe I was clinically depressed, but I don't remember.
Yeah. I say there's a lot of people that are in that same boat that never actually went to get it confirmed.
Yeah, and I think I probably was if I was given antidepressants, because they're not being handed out freely. So I think I was. I think I remember being like, I remember being in therapy for a while in college as well. And then as of recently, I started working with therapists in December 2020. I was at a point where like I don't really know what the cause of that kind of needing help was, but I remember it was like a really, really tough time, December 2020, and it was actually the time where I was launching the business as well. And maybe it was the whole imposter syndrome, I don't know, but I remember like saying to my mom, and I was like I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, and this is at a point where like we were in lockdown as well, so I was like, it's not as if I can just ring up a local therapist and rock up to her house or whatever. It was like I do everything online. So I did therapy, have been doing it since December 2020 as well. So I was doing it on a weekly basis. Then I'm now on a fortnightly basis as well. So but I suppose like why I got into it was, for different several reasons. I think I've a lot of childhood trauma that stemmed then throughout my teenage years and then into my early adulthood years as well. So I've probably been through so many different traumas throughout my life. And again, I don't say trauma is likely, like that, like, again, trauma, it doesn't have to be something absolutely massive. For some people, it could be something quite small, but it's something that I know that how I feel was not normal. I knew I shouldn't have to feel this way.
Yeah.
That I shouldn't feel like I have to hide myself or be someone for the sake of fitting into society or whatever. And I suppose like maybe in the last like 3 or 4 years, I've been truly be myself, and it's taken me some time as well. And like, I'm not saying like, I'm magically transformed and I'm now the person that I want to be. Like, I'm still trying to figure out really who I am. I'm still like, I'm 29, and I don't think you're like, there's no point, there's no probably rush in finding that out. I think I'm still trying to find who I am, and understand like these traumas are something I have for the rest of my life. It's not as if like I go to therapy once and I'm transformed and everything is okay. Like, I'm going to have these for the rest of my life, and I need to still be aware of that. The traumas that I experienced when I was younger are obviously going to adapt to the behaviors that I have now. So like, I will react in certain ways and overthink in certain ways due to my traumas, and I have to learn how to deal with that and how to manage that as well.
To manage it,
yeah. But I suppose that's probably a quick rundown. I don't know how long I've been talking, but
6 minutes.
Love. See, for everyone's watching on YouTube, you'll see that Steven is picking on the ball with time as well to make sure I don't talk as well.
That was you know what? It's mad when you say that, Jess, because I didn't even think there. You said you went back to when you were like 8 or 9.
Yeah.
Thinking back now, I went to, my mom brought me to just to cease to talk to some woman when I was like, I think I was 10 or 11. And I thought I was just going to my mom's friend's house to have a chat. But then, like, obviously my mom would leave the room and drive off, and I'd be sitting on a chair with this woman. I'm like, why does why she keep asking me questions? Like, and then obviously as I grew older, I was going to a counselor for like anger issues and temper and shit like that, which I never knew what was about or like why I had them. But as I grew up, I would get very triggered easily. I get like heart rate very high when something happens, and I always wanted to know why am I acting like this? Why do I get like this? And when I was going to like the guidance counselor, you could say for the anger management, when I was like a fucking 9-year-old, like Dennis the Menace, I stopped going then, right? So there's a bit of a gap between like 8 and 9, and then in my 20s. So I kind of acted that way up until my through my teens into my early 20s, and still in my 20s I was like still getting these triggers, still getting angry, still getting a bit wound up very easily, and certain situations would happen and I get like in fight or flight mode, and I'm like, why am I getting like this? Like, so then I always kind of just boxed it off and said I don't need to go to speak to someone, it's totally normal, right? So I didn't know what was the norm. I thought just lads would get a bit angry or pissed off sometimes. But then when COVID hit, the gym closed down. We went from 150 clients to 38 in a matter of days, right? We couldn't pay the rent. My mother got really, really, really sick with COVID. Like it was the first batch in 2020. And I was, we were thinking the worst, like she was absolutely fucked from the thing. I'm not going to lie. And I was just put on a brave face, and I was like, oh, I'm grand. I'm like, lads are supposed to be fine. The macho, all this crack, like the same shit that we see to this day, which we'll get into. But then I remember we spoke about the steroids as well. So this all had a massive part, because this is before I went to the doctor. This is before I went to a therapist. So I was feeling all this mad shit. I didn't know what I was feeling. And then I think Martin said to me, I honestly think it was Martin, he said, would you not go to a therapist? And I'm like, nah, that's all, don't be silly. And he's like, there's nothing to be ashamed about. Like, there doesn't need to be anything in particularly wrong with you to go and see a therapist. Again, we'll get into this, that people think they have to be fucked up in the head or something, like you said, some sort of trauma to go and see someone. But you don't. Like I said to you, we train our bodies in the gym every day. But why is there stigma around training your brain and going to see someone? But long story short, again, to get into it, I started going properly during COVID, and I went to this woman in Malahide, Liz, shout out, she might be listening, she might not, but I'll see you next week. But I went to Liz, and then she just explained to me why I was feeling like this and how it all went back to your childhood. And like, listen, like you said, there's traumas big, there's big traumas, there's small traumas, but we all go through some stuff. And she said to me, just because you don't remember it doesn't mean you don't still feel it. You get me? So all this stuff went on that I dug out of a hole, and I was like, Jesus, now I'm getting back to that. And she's like, this is why you get like this is why you think like that. But that's why I got into it. And then, like, I swear to God, every time I'm going down, I've actually went to cancel Liz so many times, because I'm like, I don't want to go today, I'm a bit anxious. But then you go and you leave and you feel like you have the world as a weight off your shoulders. Or the weight of the world off your shoulder. So I got into it properly during COVID, and now I'm going like you. I went weekly, I went bi-weekly, and now I'm going every month or 5 weeks. And I'm not letting it get to the stage where something has to be wrong. What I'm doing these days is a bit mad, right? I could feel something or feel an emotion or get triggered, and I'd write it down on my phone and my notes immediately what it was. I'd go to Liz, I'd show her the phone and say, why did I feel like this? Do you get me? So that's why I get into it now, and it's honestly one of the best investments, and I cannot advise it enough. It's like a cheat code for life to actually get on better. Because like we were making money, our gym was closed, my ma was sick as fuck, and I was just trying to get on with everything's fine. And if I hadn't gone to Liz and spoke to her, I don't know what I would have done. Honestly, I don't know. I probably would have ended up in a fucking hospital. I don't know. But that's why I got into it, and I've never looked back.
Yeah, and I think as the important thing, as you said, people normally wait or don't go until the worst has happened. And it's like when hiring a fitness coach, people wait until they're at like their most pinnacle, being like, this is like rock bottom. Now I'll reach out for help. It's like, going to therapy doesn't mean, as you said, something has to be wrong. Like if you want to talk to someone who's maybe like not your friend or your partner or whatever, and just will actually want to seek help, like there's nothing wrong with that. I suppose like it definitely over the last 2 years, I would hope that we're coming out of this stigma around therapy, because I'm like the last 2 years, everyone has experienced the worst 2 years of potentially their life. And like, you know, like hopefully touch wood that we don't experience this in our lives again, the pandemic, because like it like for like obviously, as you said, your business like completely did 360. You know, you were a very successful business. Now you are currently a very successful business, but like at the time, March 2020, your whole life turned upside down. Like I was living in Australia thinking I'm going to get sponsored, I'm going to stay out here. No, I had to get a flight home. I got made redundant out in Australia. Like everyone experienced different things. And I suppose over the last 2 years, like I think like hopefully people kind of realize that like, okay, we all go through different feelings or experiences with mental health as well. And again, it shouldn't be, oh, I'll wait until it's really, really bad and then I'll make a change. Or it's like, I'll wait until like I can't get out of the bed, then I'll make that call. It's like, why are you waiting until why are you waiting until it's so bad? Like I don't, it's something that I'm like, you know, it's a bit like, you know, let's say for me, right? For example, to take this out of context, but let's say my hair, I don't wait. And like, if anyone obviously sees right now, I've like hot pink hair. I don't wait until my hair is like back to brown to then go get my hair done. I wait until it's like, oh, do you know what? I could do a little refresh. That's how therapy should be. It should be seen as like the little refresh to kind of like, it'll pick me up, instead of like, okay, I'm going to wait until I'm bawling my eyes out and then I'll make a change. It shouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah, it is. I do that, and that's what I was kind of doing, because I was like a ticking time bomb. I was like, I'm going to have a breakdown any minute. And Martin just goes, would you not go to a fucking therapist? Then I text one of the other lads, Shane, and I said, you know anyone? Like, he's like, yeah, because he was a business owner as well. We went through the same stuff, and he put me in touch with this woman, and I went down, and just like I said, it just makes everything. It makes you, it doesn't fix all your problems, but it makes you like manage with anxiety better. It makes you manage with, like, again, I was always like, do you know what I went back to, right? This is how messed up it was, right? She said, the reason you get triggered and your heart rate gets real high when you think something's going to happen. She goes, did you ever have a situation where there was violence and there was fights? And I said, many times when I was younger, when you're kids and you get a few slaps and you get beaten up and there's confrontation and you're fight or flight. So she said to me, the reason that you might feel like this when there's a confrontation or something's getting heated, or you see something getting heated, you actually get triggered because you think back to this situation that happened to you back then, and there was murder. So every time this happens now, you're going back to that younger me saying, oh, it's going to kick off here. But it could be a simple text from someone, and I'd be like, do you know what I mean? It's that. And then she's like, right, again, you go back to like your breathing techniques, you start getting present, you start getting a bit more like in the moment, and you realize that there's nothing wrong. But I all this time I was thinking, I was like, why am I getting so wound up over these little things? And like you said, it just went all the way back to when I was a kid. And like I said, there was nothing majorly traumatic that happened to me, but there was a few like fights here and there. And as you grow into that, you grow up. Every time I had a confrontation, every time there was a bit of a debate, every time in a football match or in anything, and there was a tiny bit of conflict, I'd be like, it's going to go down now. But it wasn't. I was just going back to the younger me. And then she said to me that you have to be able to manage it. It's not going to happen, etc. But yeah, I talk to people on a daily basis. Could be clients, could be friends, and they'd be a bit of shit going on, and I'm like, would you not go down and see this woman that I see, or see someone? And they're like, no, it's cool, I don't need to. But these are the people that actually go, that need to. Like I can like some statements out of some people, or the way some people think, or the way I talk to people, in my head I'm like, you should really go and speak to someone. Because letting it just build up, that is when something probably will happen, and then you'll go. But go now, and it's just a message to anyone that's ever thinking of going. There doesn't have to be anything wrong. No one has had to die. You haven't had to witness something very violent or be beaten to go. You can literally just be, why you want to know why you're thinking like the way you're thinking. You want to know why you're acting the way you're acting. You want to know how to control your emotions. Go to a therapist. I wish I went when I was younger, because there was a gap there, like I said, 8 to 10 to Jesus 20s, that I didn't know what was going on. And
Yeah, there's obviously like this big stigma around it. And as I said, like comparing the last 2 years, I think if anything, like the last 2 years should have kind of maybe like pulled away from that stigma in a way. But like I suppose like to really actually just as you were talking, I'm thinking about a very like Irish context. Like if someone was, I know, and this is probably a very Irish thing as well. Do you know, like if someone was to come up to you and they'd have like a problem or whatever and be like, ah, should be grand. We always say, ah, it'll be grand or whatever. Or do you know when someone like, you know, greets you and it's like, oh, hey, how are you, Stephen? Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, yeah, how are you?
Yeah.
No one ever says, do you know what, I'm feeling shit today. Nobody actually ever says that, except I've done it over the last like a few weeks. So let's say if you were to, you've been
about to say to me, you have,
like literally, I'm in contact with Stephen pretty much nearly every day, and like I'll like he'd be like, oh, hey, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm having a shit day. And like sometimes we just put this like window or like a wall up and be like, everything's grand, everything's all right. A few drinks, be grand at the weekend, I'll be fine. That'll cure all my problems, or you know, oh, this will be grand, whatever. It's just a little phase, whatever. I think as Irish people, we actually put up this wall, and I feel that's probably why we're not really a like open society. I don't know. Am I right in saying that? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, 100%. Like I said to you a few weeks ago, how are you doing? You look like you're flying. And you were like, no, I'm not at all. So that's just another example that like to someone looking in, it might look great and she has everything together, but like no one has it all together. No one. All the people these people look up to and Instagram and fucking followers and blue ticks, no one has it together. Everyone is going through their own shit. And I used to be like that, Jess, as a coach. The last thing I'd be doing is letting people know that I'm all over the place. And you hold up this front, but fuck me, it gets tiring of not being yourself. Do you get me? Having this wall up of like, oh no, I'm grand. Business went to shit. I was pretty fucked up from the last podcast we had with Connor. And like it is an Irish thing. It is an Irish thing. And when you let your guard down, even I spoke to you, Jess, about even like you as a coach, when I was like, when you let your guard down and you become more relatable, it's a lot more easier to speak to someone and open up and express how you feel. But there's too many people that they're hiding these things and they're trying to go on as if they have everything together, and they don't. And you see all these like it's I know it goes back to like, it's a bit of a weird example, but like memes, and it's like a person saying hello, I'm fine, and then at night time in bed they're fucking 101 things going through their head. You know? Yeah.
It's an unfortunate thing, I suppose. Like for any Irish people that might be listening, you might be like, oh my god, yeah, like we do that the whole time. And again, it's just how we've been programmed. Essentially, it's just like the automatic response to how are you is I'm fine, and it's just an automatic thing because you just don't think, oh, I'm not going to like ruin someone's day, or like you feel like you're overbearing your problems, whatever. But like it's actually something I seen on social media today. There was a post that I shared. Like you don't know what's going on in people's lives. So something that I like, you know, and I'm actually going to try and do this when I'm on the tube. So when I'm on the tube in London, like I see so many different people of all walks of life, and it's like I love London because it's so diverse. But like if you were to actually look around you, or even like next time so you guys are in a shop, just actually take a second to actually be aware of the people that are around you. Like there's probably something going on in all their lives. They could be going through like God knows what type of trauma, and I suppose it's just another reminder to be kind. Like I think like we are just not kind to ourselves. We think our problems don't matter, and it's like you matter, like 100%. Like you are living this life for you. You have to look after your body. You've one body, you've one mind to look after for the rest of your life, so you should be trying to do everything to look after it. But yeah, with this stigma, like I don't know how we're going to kind of move past this. I don't know what the future kind of holds for that as well. But I do hope even after this conversation, Stephen, that people, you know, maybe kind of think about, okay, do you know what, maybe I will reach out to someone or whatever, you know, even if it's a friend, talking to someone about your problems. Like I said, like it doesn't have to be a big thing. If you've had a shit day at work, talk to someone about it. Stop keep bottling it all up, because you're ended up going to go to bed. You're going to be overthinking the situation, and you're going to just feel 10 times worse. And like, as you said, like when you go to therapy, you may go feeling a little bit anxious, and then when you leave it, you're like, oh, weights lifted off my shoulders, thank God. Like you don't need to have this constant tension on your shoulders. Like that's not how you should be living your life.
Yeah, and like you said, there's nothing wrong. I know it's such a cliche saying, but like it's okay to not be okay. Do you know what I mean? Thankfully, I have a few very close friends that I could text them saying, how are you? And they would say, I'm not doing good. Do you want to go for a walk?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But years ago, it would have been like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm sound. I'm cool. And I know I've had friends that have committed suicide. I'm sure we all know someone who's done it. And that's when it can get to, like, do you know what I mean? That's when you bottle all these feelings up and this sadness and anxiety and stuff like that, it can get down the very, very ugly road, as opposed to just reaching out. And if you look at, I think I read something there, like suicide in Ireland has the 17th highest rate in Europe and the fourth highest rate in males, which is fucking pretty scary numbers.
It's yeah, it's just so scary. Like, even obviously there yesterday was obviously darkness into light in Ireland. So like, you're just kind of thinking, like, obviously that yesterday would have been a very, like, I want to say special day, or I suppose like a very, like, you know, important day for a lot of people in people's lives. So as you said, like, we all know someone who has taken their own life as well, and you just don't know, because it's sometimes, I think there's another saying, I suppose, but it's always like the people you least expect that have maybe been diagnosed with depression, or maybe have things going on. And like, as you said, you thought I was flying it with, like, you know, my social media might be telling you that, like, everything's great and like my content's amazing and all that kind of stuff, but like, nobody knows behind the scenes until you actually ask me, like, how are you? You know, I think it's just important to remember that we're all human at the end of the day as well. But just obviously, just to kind of go on about that point that you brought up about, like, you know, the rate of males being quite high, you know, obviously, you know, is that something you still see maybe with your friends or yourself or people around you, in terms of like the stigma around males not going to therapy, or, you know, normalizing it, I suppose?
Yeah, I do think I think males, they're just too stubborn. Some lads are just way too stubborn, and it's this like, I'm macho man, like, I'll be fucking grand, don't be silly, like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. I the scary thing is, I don't, again, it's like the fitness center we spoke about. I don't think there's much people will I don't think it's going to change. There's a reason that the men's percent is a lot higher than the women's. Do you know what I mean? I just think lads have this, what we're led to believe, or what we're supposed to believe, is lads have it together. Lads are the alpha male. But it's just, it couldn't be further from the case. But like I said, I was in that position. I would, like, with business, when we were struggling, I would have said, I'm not telling anyone this. Like, with a mentorship or a mentor for business, I'm not going to him because I have my shit together. Well, I want people to think I have my shit together. And I'm not letting people think, oh, he goes to that mentor because his business is struggling. But at the end of the day, you like, at what cost is it? Do you know what I mean? For someone thinking, oh, he doesn't have his shit together. Like, who cares if people know you don't have your shit together? Like, we have to stop, like I said to you before, we have to stop putting ourselves on pedestals and thinking we're the dog's bollocks. We have everything together. I can't let anyone know this. That's madness. And if you're in that mindset that I was in, I was literally like, no, I'm doing really well. I'm not letting anyone know I'm doing really bad, because they'll think little of me. And all I did was prolong that pain of, through business, through my fucking own, like, lifestyle, relationships. It can get very messy very fast.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. It's tapping in with your different energies. I suppose this is probably my spirituality now coming out. But like, we all have, as deemed, like, male and female, or masculine and feminine energies. And I suppose, like, the guys are like, you know, have the stigma in their head. They're like, oh, I need to be, you know, lad, train gym 5 days a week and pints with the lads the weekend, and that's how I live my life, or whatever. But it's just like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I don't know, again, this is probably a whole different topic about gender, I suppose, as well. It's just like, we're now very amazingly in a society where, like, gender doesn't really, we shouldn't be defined by our gender as well. And you know, like, we now have, like, you know, transgender, non-binary, and, you know, etc. We've this whole different, like, realm of different genders. But I suppose, like, lads still feel like they have to be lads, and and they, you know, might not be able to wear pink, whatever, because they might be people might think they're, you know, whatever. And it's just like, I just don't understand why now, with everything that's kind of gone on, that, like, people just can't feel like they could be themselves. And it's really tough, like, when you see, like, you know, like, when I think, like, actually, when you said about males committing suicide, the person that came into my mind when you said that was a guy that I kind of was acquaintances with, and it was a guy that committed suicide. And I remember being at his grave at Christmas, and I just remember standing there, and I just wanted to bawl my eyes at being like, it was, again, someone you just didn't expect. And just like, it's so heartbreaking, because again, like people kind of like have made that decision to end their lives, and it's like there was help and everything like that. It's just another reminder to be kind to people, regardless if you're having a shit day. You know, if you're having a shit day, talk to someone about it and stuff like that as well. And like, as you kind of said, being vulnerable as well, there's a lot more trust or maybe like respect from people as well. Like, let's say for my sister, like, you know, my sister is everything to me. And I said to her voice note maybe like last week or the week before, and I was bawling my eyes out. And she's now even like reaching out to me way more than she ever has, just because she knows, she's like, she could even like, obviously I was crying, like, so I was obviously not great, but like, you know, I've had to be way more vulnerable. I think April, I definitely saw a different side of me where like that, I'd be quite like, I've a lot of masculine energy because I am so stubborn. I will never let anyone know my problems. And like I saw a different side of me where I actually started to be a little bit more open up. Even probably, I was probably going to my therapy sessions, putting my wall up, because I was like, oh, everything's fine. And whereas like now I'm like, no, I need to be a little more vulnerable. And I think what I think people need to remember is that vulnerability does not mean you're weak. And I think that's probably another stigma, is like people think, oh, well, I'm weak if I'm weak if I talk about my problems. And it's like, I have to be strong, and, you know, I have to be, you know, the good parent and the good partner. And, you know, I feel like people think it's a sign of weakness.
And the thing is, when you actually think about it, I'm not going to say it's weak not to go, but you're actually showing more set of balls going. You're more of a man if you go to speak to someone, as opposed to, no, I'm going to be a man about it and I'll be grand. But you're actually more of a man to step up and fucking jump into it. As opposed to hide away. But in regards to the males, like I said, there's a handful of people that like I could talk to on a daily basis, and I'm like, you could deal. And we spoke with this, Jess, even like old clients I would have had like in the gym, and we'd be doing like check-ins and stuff like that, and I'd get a few red flags, and I'd say, do you know what, you might need to go and speak to a therapist, when it could be, right, I'm going to Steven, he's my coach. What I'll try and do is tell Steven my problems, so he'll tell me because I'm paying him. But I see that as, right, you shouldn't be telling me these things. You should actually go and speak to someone about it. Very, very common thing as well.
I think, again, people like, I suppose, like, look, there's a coach for everything at this point. You could get a coach for anyone. There's something there for every single element of your life. Whatever you're looking for, there's someone there to get help with. But I do feel like coaching, online fitness coaching, has become a thing where it's like, I'm going to go to them and with my nutrition things, and it's like, no, I'm not a nutrition therapist. Like, I think people need to bear in mind when you're hiring someone, like, obviously this is not to be totally harsh, but you do have a responsibility of who you are paying money to. You should know what they're qualified in. You should know what they're going to be able to help you in. So if you were seeking specific help with nutrition, maybe an online fitness coach isn't the right one for you based on their qualifications, you know. Same with therapy. It's, again, realizing that, do I need an online fitness coach? Do I need a therapist? Do I need an online coach? Or do I need a career coach? You know, do I need an online coach, or whatever the case might be? I think, like, be very, like, remember that you have responsibility for where your money goes. And I think try and make sure that, like, before you hand over any money, is this the person that is going to help me with whatever issue it is, as well? Because I do feel like, definitely, even the pandemic, I suppose, as well, like, I think a lot of online fitness coaches took a bit of a responsibility, you know, when it came to people's mental health. But, like, you know, unless coaches are specifically saying, I'm qualified to help with mental health, I'm like, which I don't know any people that are, shouldn't have that responsibility. So, like, and again, you've taken that point as, I've done it as well several times, where if it came to something outside my scope, I would have the responsibility to be like, look, I want what's best for you. I don't think I'm the person to help you with this area. I'm happy to refer you here. And if a coach is doing that, it genuinely shows that they do care. Because, like, we don't want to, like, you know, there's some coaches out there that maybe want to just take your money and think they can help you, whatever. But there are people like Steve and I who do want the best for every single person, regardless of what, like, walk of life they come from, what problems they have. We want the best for people. We're very people orientated, and, you know, I think it's important to remember that, like, be careful who you work with, you know.
No, you see some, like, as coaches, if someone comes to us and they need help again with their mental health, with some of that stuff, we will advise. Of course, I'll advise and I'll say, here, if I was in that position before, here's what I done. But there's been many clients that over the years that have come to me with stuff that I'm like, there's a reason he's saying this to me and not to a therapist, because I'd imagine they just don't want to go to the therapist.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But yeah, a quick question, what did you find the biggest benefits of, or have been the biggest benefits of going? What stuck out the most?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't really know. I suppose like it's actually probably the not even a judgment, like a kind of a judgment-free zone. Not that I suppose like for me, why I don't open up to a lot of people, be it my parents, be it my sister, be it my friends, I have this thing where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna like bear them with my problems. They have so much going on in their lives, and I feel like I kept saying to myself that my issues don't matter, or my problems don't matter. And I don't want to bring negativity into my life, or negativity into other people's lives.
Yeah.
It was like, for me, therapy has been a space where like there's no judgment. I'm like, that's my hour, 45 minutes for me. And to know that like I do matter, I suppose, like to me as well. So I think it's probably just, really helped me understand that I do matter, and what I feel perhaps sometimes isn't normal. Like it's not normal to feel panicky all the time and like have high anxiety, have pains in my chest when something goes wrong, or wake up being like, I don't want to get on with today. Like there's so many different things that we sometimes in society we normalize. Like we normalized anxiety, and I'm like, anxiety is not something to be normalized. I'm like, so
yeah.
like so I think it's probably just helped me kind of, I suppose it in a way helped me open up to maybe the people around me as well. Like as I said, like I've been open to you, I've been open to my sister, I've been open to a lot of people, particularly over the last like 6 to 8 weeks as well. And probably a lot of it was probably because I've obviously moved away from home now. It's my first time moved away from home since I come back from Australia. So I suppose like there's probably that little bit of like homesickness as well. And I'm like, oh, I can't annoy anyone that's at home. And then I'm like, no, I need to still be open with people as well. So probably the non-judgmental kind of zone, I think, is probably the benefit that I could think of. What about yourself?
Jesus, many things, but I think like being aware, more awareness, and how to, like, a massive one for me was how to deal with situations. Because like I said, Liz said to me, like, it was always just fight or flight. It was always like panic stations and shit like that. But like, even one of the staff members said to me, like, since you started going to therapy, that you're so much more approachable. You wouldn't hit the roof at some stuff that you would have before. Other stuff like that would have got me annoyed. I just am a lot more calm about it. Like, and I'm not gonna say I was going around fucking throwing tantrums, but just dealing with things a bit better, and not like. Another one was very interesting. If someone said something to me and I got offended, I'd be like, that they're trying to attack me. But then Liz was like, you're only looking at your perspective. Look at the other person's perspective all the time. Do you get me? Like, if Martin said something, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Blah, blah. And Liz like, you have to see where he's coming from and not just where you're coming from. So again, it's a lot of awareness and how to deal with things a lot better. But and then the whole thing about just, again, not putting yourself on a pedestal, not thinking you're that important. Obviously, we're all important in our own heads, but you're a lot like some sort of fucking superhero that doesn't not feel things. Like you it's okay to get sad. It's okay to get depressed. It's okay to get anxious. And again, we do need to normalize that it is okay to go and see someone about it.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, that's the list is endless in terms of benefits. And like I said, when you have all this ammunition of anxiety or sadness or anger, and then it's building up, that's not healthy for your fucking head to go on long term. And like I said, I was a ticking time bomb, and now I go to Liz, I have a list of stuff I want to speak about. I speak about that, and I come out and I'm fucking shadowboxing, walking down the road happy as Larry. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, I just think it's just such a good way to get a professional that you don't know, and just to get shit off your chest, because we're all like, oh, I'll sort this out myself. We're all coaches, and we all put ourselves in a high regard, hold ourselves to a high regard. But when it comes to this stuff, you want to go to a professional and not try and beat it on your own.
Yeah. that's the thing. We're not meant to be on our own as humans.
Yeah.
Like we need human interaction and all that kind of stuff as well, psychologically as well. So it's you're not in this alone. And for anyone that's listening, like even though you might be listening to this podcast, like as actually someone said to me recently as well, that they enjoy listening to this podcast, they actually feel like they're in the conversation with us, which I actually love. So it's not just like, you know, hopefully whoever is listening, that you feel like this, you're part of this conversation as well, and to remember that like you are not alone, regardless of what, you know, thing you might be feeling or whatever problem. Like no problem is too big or too small for you to talk about. So like obviously the biggest thing we want you guys to take away from this is that like whether it's opening up to a friend, a partner, actually taking the step to even reach out to a therapist or counselor, and you know, you deserve to be happy, you deserve to have a life that's filled with fulfillment and joy. And regardless of your gender, like, you know, we can't be tough all the time, we can't be strong. Like you won't be seen as weak, you'll be seen as human. So
no, 100%. And that's the next thing I was going to say before we wrap it up, that like if you are going through your own battles and stuff like that, it is okay. It is okay. Again, it's the old saying, it's okay to not be okay. But go and see someone before that stage where it is a bit like it can get messy, it can get very intense, something may happen down the line. I'm saying if you don't go and get looked at now and get it sorted, because like I said, I waited until COVID, I waited until my mom got sick, I waited until the business closed down. When in hindsight, if I had dealt with these things and these insecurities and this anxiousness over the years, I would have been able to deal with it a lot better. And again, if you find yourself, like Jess said there, anxious all the time, a bit sad, like that is totally normal, but go and speak to someone about it. Don't normalize that feeling every day. Don't say, oh, this is the way I'm supposed to be. It isn't. You're supposed to wake up not supposed to, but like life's supposed to be for living and to be happy and to be stress-free. Another one, just before we finish up, there's been many, many times that I have not said something to a friend, a partner, that was eating at me, but because I was just afraid of the confrontation. But then I said it, and it's just like, do you ever have a conversation, be like, I'm so glad I mentioned that to you?
Yeah,
that's what I feel like with therapy. Like, yeah,
no, it does. You just feel so much better, like not like just actually being yourself. I think like if you keep saying we're fine all the time, like you're probably not going to believe it. You know, the problem is still going to like persist. And the same, we always kind of wait until it's the moment where we're like, okay, shit's really bad, now I'm going to do something about it. It's kind of like, you know, we wait until our eating habits are really bad, then we'll reach out to maybe a therapist or whatever. Oh, well, I haven't, you know, trained at the gym in 6 years and I'm, you know, feeling unfit, now I'm going to go and get a personal trainer, whatever the case would be. So like, stop waiting until the worst moment, because like it's actually going to probably take you a lot longer to get to a stage where you feel happier and content. So, you know, if you're like even 70% okay, like you could still reach out to someone, even if you feel like 100% all the time. And again, like you might be, if you are going to therapy right now and you feel like, oh, everything's amazing, like I don't need to go anymore. It's like, you don't need to go when things are good. It's like with, you know, journaling or something like that. Like I really enjoy journaling. And even on the days where I feel good, I still journal, regardless if I don't think of any problems or issues going on. Like you still should be doing things regardless of how your mood is or how you might think things are. Like you can still go to therapy and still feel like happy and whatever that particular day. So it shouldn't be something that you just go on the bad days.
Yeah. And like just to finish off on a note like that, Jess, we train every single day, again, to train our bodies and keep fit. So why can't we train our brain and go to see a therapist? If it's once a week, if it's once bi-weekly, if it's once a month, your mind and your body should be firing on all cylinders. And we've no problem spending money and putting ourselves through the mill in the gym every day. Let's look after upstairs as well, because if upstairs isn't looked after, then we're fucked. It doesn't matter what we look like or how hard we're training. If them four walls in our head aren't all in tune, it's going to get messy. So yeah, just to wrap it up on that note, today's episode about the stigma around therapy. Hope you enjoyed myself and Jess's experience. And if you are feeling down, anxious, sad, anything at all that you think isn't right, go and speak to someone. Don't wait till it gets too late. Anything else, Jess, before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's everything. I think that was a nice way to kind of end it. If you guys are watching on YouTube, we hope you enjoyed watching us as well. Please do like and subscribe. But if you're listening to us on Spotify, please make sure to leave us a review, or else, of course, like please feel free to share any feedback with us, sharing your stories, tag us. We love seeing any feedback as well. But we do hope this conversation has inspired you in some way. But we hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you all in the next episode.
Bye.